Welcome to Value Plays Only, where World Gorger Dragon just cleans up your playmat. Today we have Tyler playing Glarb, Calamity's Augur. This is a Sultai control deck looking to use Glarb's card advantage and Surveil to police the table. It can win with Thassa's Oracle or an Aetherflux Reservoir Loop. His hand contains an Elves of Deep Shadow, Mana Vault, Arcane Signet, Finale Devastation, Imperial Seal, and Boseiju Who Endures. Dan is playing Zhulodok, Void Gorger. This is a big mana colorless random number generator. It looks to cast discounted high CMC cards to cascade into a win. It usually wins through a Glaring Fleshraker loop. His hand contains a Soul Ring, Manifold Key, Thran Dynamo, Bygone Colossus, War Room, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, and Scorched Ruins. Cami is playing Kefka, Court Mage. This is a Grixis mid-range deck pretending to be a hand disruption deck. The deck can generate massive card advantage through Kefka before winning with Thassa's Oracle or Underworld Breach. Her hand contains a Volatile Stormdrake, Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze, Mystical Tutor, Rhystic Study, Volcanic Island, and Blood Crypt. John is playing Zurgo, Stormrender. This deck is all about tokens, and Zurgo turns them into card advantage. It can win with Abdel Adrian loops, Dualcaster Mage, or Underworld Breach. His hand contains Lotho, Corrupt Sheriff, Underworld Breach, Pyroblast, Mox Diamond, Mount Doom, Necromancy, and Dark Ritual. And with that, let's see some value plays. Tyler starts things off with a Boseiju Who Endures, his land for turn. He casts a Mana Vault. He floats one to cast an Arcane Signet. It resolves and Tyler casts an Elves of Deep Shadow. He then passes the turn. Dan plays a War Room, his land for turn. He casts a Soul Ring. Tyler steps in here and says he doesn't want to be 2 turns closer to Cascade nonsense. He asks Cami if she plans to drop a Remora. She says no chance, and Tyler casts Mental Misstep on Soul Ring. Blown out, Dan passes the turn. Cami plays a Volcanic Island, his land for turn. She then passes. John plays a Mount Doom, his land for turn. He then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. In his draw step, he takes one from his Mana Vault. He plays a Wooded Foothills, his land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up a tropical island. Tyler casts his commander, Glarb, Calamity's Augur. The rest of the table stare sadly at his incredible board compared to their 1 land each. Glarb resolves, and Tyler then casts Imperial Seal. He searches up a card at the top of his library and loses 2 life. Tyler then passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He plays a Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, his land for turn. He casts a Manifold Key. Dan then passes the turn. At the end of Dan's turn, Cami casts a Mystical Tutor. She searches up a Dark Ritual to the top of her library, and then the turn moves to Cami. Cami untaps and draws. She plays a Blood Crypt, in play untapped, paying 2 life. She casts Dark Ritual. It resolves and Cami spends her mana on a Rhystic Study. Feeling much better about her position, Cami passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays an Arid Mesa as land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up a Scrubland. John casts Lotho, Corrupt Sheriff. Rhystic triggers and Cami draws. John then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. In his draw step, he takes 1 from his Mana Vault. Tyler looks at the top of his library with Glarb. He activates Glarb to Surveil 2, putting Exploration and Noxious Revival in his grave. Tyler casts his own Rhystic Study. It resolves and he passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He plays a Scorched Ruins, sacrificing 2 untapped lands as it enters. He casts a Thran Dynamo. 2 Rhystics trigger and Tyler and Cami draw. He taps Thran for 3 mana and spends 1 on a Mana Vault. Rhystic, Lotho, and Rhystic trigger. Tyler draws, John loses a life and makes a treasure, and then Cami draws. Mana Vault resolves and Dan spends 1 of his floating mana to activate Key, untapping Thran Dynamo. He taps out to cast his commander, Zhulodok, Void Gorger. 2 Rhystics trigger and Tyler and Cami draw. Fully recovered from the loss of his Soul Ring, Dan passes the turn. Cami untaps and draws. She plays a Starting Town as land for turn. She casts a Mox Opal. Rhystic triggers and Tyler says if she doesn't pay, he'll deal with the Zhulodok. Tyler draws from Rhystic. Cami then casts a Dauthi Voidwalker. Lotho and Rhystic trigger. Cami pays, and then John loses a life and makes a treasure. With that, Cami passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays a Phyrexian Tower as land for turn. He casts his commander, Zurgo, Stormrender. 2 Rhystics trigger and Tyler and Cami draw. John goes to combat, swinging Lotho at Cami. She takes the damage, and John passes the turn. In his end step, Tyler casts Legolas's Quick Reflexes targeting Glarb. Rhystic triggers to Cami draws. Glarb untaps. Tyler taps Glarb to Surveil 2. Reflexes triggers to have Glarb ping Zhulodok for 2. Because Glarb has Death Touch, Zhulodok dies. Tyler then surveils, leaving both on top. The turn then moves to Tyler. Tyler untaps, and in his draw step, Mana Vault deals 1 to him. He casts a Mox Opal. Rhystic triggers and Cami draws. He plays a Manamo, School at Water's Edge, off the top of his library with Glarb. Tyler casts a Thassa's Oracle. The table pucker up and lock in. Lotho triggers to lose a life and make a treasure. Priority passes through the colorless Menace and the only blue player to John, who casts Pyroblast, targeting Thassa. 2 Rhystic trigger. In response, Tyler activates Glarb to Surveil 2, leaving both on top. Both players draw, Pyroblast then counters Thassa, and both move to the Dauthi zone. The table now shift their focus to the Grixis player with a free Thassa, and Tyler passes the turn. Dan untaps, and in his draw step, Mana Vault deals 1 to him. He plays Thespian Stage as land for turn. He activates Key, untapping Mana Vault. Dan recasts his commander, Zhulodok, Void Gorger. 2 Rhystic trigger and both players draw. Zhulodok resolves and Dan taps out to warp Bygone Colossus. It triggers twice to Cascade. Rhystic, Lotho, and Rhystic trigger. Tyler draws, John loses life and makes a treasure, and then Cami draws. Dan resolves his first Cascade, finding Voltaic Key, casting it. 2 Rhystic's trigger, and both players draw. His second cascade then resolves and finds all his dust, casting it. 2 Rhystic's trigger, and both players take a desperation draw. Much to the sadness of the table, all his dust resolves, blowing the table to bits of all colored cards. Colossus then resolves. Dan moves to his end step, and Bygone Colossus is exiled to its warp trigger. He then passes the turn. Cammy untaps and draws. She casts a Lotus Petal. Nothing triggers for the first time since the dawn of this game. She plays a City of Traders as land for turn. Cammy casts Arcane Signet. She then casts Underworld Breach. Tyler responds with a Tainted Pact, looking for an answer. It resolves and Tyler starts exiling. He exiles 10 or so cards until he finds Swan Song, adding it to his hand. He then casts Swan Song, targeting Breach. Underworld Breach is countered, and Cammy makes a 2/2 bird. She casts Rite of Flame, adding 2 red. Cammy taps out to cast her commander, Kefka, Court Mage. It enters and triggers, making everyone discard 2 lands and 2 artifacts. Cammy draws 2, and then passes the turn, discarding down to hand size. John untaps and draws. He casts Dark Ritual. It resolves, and John adds 3 black mana. He spends 1 on a Vampiric Tutor. He searches up a card to the top of his library and loses 2 life. John casts Underworld Breach. It resolves, and the tables strap in. John says not to worry. His line is crusty, shaky, and unstable. He casts a Grinding Station. It enters and triggers to untap. John responds by tapping it, sacrificing a treasure to mill 3, including a Mana Vault. John spends 1 to cast Mana Vault, escaping it by exiling 3 cards. It enters and Grinding Station triggers to untap. John responds by making 3 mana with Mana Vault, and then sacrificing it to Grinding Station to mill 3. Grinding Station then untaps. John can now present a loop of casting and sacrificing Mana Vault, milling 3, exiling 3 from his grave, and making a net 2 colorless mana. The problem with this loop is that John doesn't quite have enough excess cards in his grave to filter through the rest of his library. He goes through this loop, treading water for 20 or so cards until he hits Lotus Petal. He casts Lotus Petal from his grave, and then sacrifices it for 1 red mana. He then casts Jeska's Will from his grave, exiling every card except Mana Vault, praying he gets something good to do with his top 3. John exiles Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, Deflecting Swat, and Mox Opal. That isn't quite what he needs, as he can't get Opal online. He casts Opal to trigger Grinding Station, responding by sacrificing it to mill 3 cards. He continues along his Mana Vault Grinding Station loop, getting down to 6 cards in library. He decides to stop there, sacrificing Underworld Breach, ending with a graveyard of Underworld Breach, Savine's Reclamation, and Abdel Adrian, Gorian's Ward. The turn moves to Tyler, with John seemingly confident about his small, pitiful deck. Tyler untaps, and in his draw step, he takes 1 from his Mana Vault. He plays a Watery Grave, into play untap, paying 2 life. He casts a Wandering Archaic. It resolves, and Tyler says John showed him a Necromancy earlier, and if it gets back to John, he'll make infinite 1/1s to kill the board. The rest of them need to band together. Tyler passes the turn. Dan untaps, and in his draw step, Mana Vault deals 1 to him. He says he can stop John's plans and plays Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale as land for turn. He casts Bygone Colossus from exile, and it triggers twice to cascade. The first cascade resolves, and he finds Liquid Metal Torque, casting it. The second cascade resolves, finding Ingenuity Engine, casting it. It triggers to cascade again into Cursed Totem, casting it. Ingenuity Engine and Colossus then resolve. Dan goes to combat, swinging Zhulodok at John. He takes the damage, and Dan passes the turn. Cammy untaps and draws. She casts Gamble. Wandering Archaic triggers, and Cammy says she can't pay. Tyler copies Gamble and then searches up a card to hand, randomly discarding an Aetherflux Reservoir, as everyone stands up straighter, asking what the hell is in his hand. Cammy's Gamble then resolves, searching up a card into her 7-card hand and randomly discarding Thassa's Oracle. There's a lot of silent coughing at the table, as Cammy plays Watery Grave as land for turn. City of Traders triggers to sacrifice itself. Cammy then casts the One Ring. It resolves, and she gains protection from everything. Cammy goes to combat, swinging Kefka and her bird at John. Kefka triggers, and everyone discards an artifact, an enchantment, a creature, and a land, with Cammy drawing 4. John then takes the damage, and the table gets a good long look at the Necromancy in his graveyard. Cammy passes the turn, discarding to hand size. John untaps and draws to 1 card in hand. He casts his new card, Animate Dead. The table explodes at the idiotic luck that John has going for him as he reanimates Douthie Voidwalker from Cammy's grave. The table eye the Thassa's Oracle with a Void counter and John's very empty library and get worried. Dan then points to the Curse Totem he has, and John sinks into a deeper despair. John passes the turn. Tyler untaps, and in his upkeep, he pays through Tabernacle to keep his Wandering Archaic. In his draw step, he takes 1 from his Mana Vault. He plays a Scalding Tarn as land for turn. Tyler casts Beseech the Mirror, bargaining it by sacrificing Mana Vault. It resolves, and Tyler goes searching. He's missing a lot of his wins right now, and opts to exile a card face down and just return it to his hand. Tyler then passes the turn. Dan untaps, and in his upkeep, he pays to keep his creatures. In his draw step, he takes 1 from Mana Vault. In his main phase, Dan plays a Sanctum of Ugin as land for turn. Dan activates the Ingenuity Engine, sacrificing Mana Vault to return Bygone Colossus to his hand. He warps Bygone Colossus from his hand for 3, triggering it twice to cascade and triggering Sanctum of Ugin. Sanctum sacrifices to search up a Metalwork Colossus. The first cascade trigger resolves, and Dan finds Lightning Greaves, casting it. The second cascade trigger resolves, and Dan finds a Memory Jar, casting it. John starts sweating in his seat as he has less than 7 in his library. He tells Dan that if he tries to crack the jar, John will, quote, blow him to bits by milling him for 3 with Grinding Station. With that strong threat looming, Dan continues. Dan casts Metalwork Colossus for free, triggering twice to Cascade. The first Cascade resolves to find Mystic Forge, casting it. The second Cascade trigger resolves and Dan finds Disruptor Flute, casting it. In response, Cammy taps her One Ring to draw 2 cards. Disruptor Flute resolves, and Dan chooses the One Ring. Metalwork Colossus then resolves. Dan activates Manifold Key to untap Ingenuity Engine. He activates Engine, sacrificing Liquid Metal Torque to return Metalwork Colossus to hand. He then casts it for free, and it triggers twice to Cascade. The first Cascade resolves, finding Moonsilver Key. The second Cascade resolves, finding Grim Monolith, casting it. Metalwork Colossus then resolves. Dan activates Memory Jar, sacrificing it. True to his word, John sacrifices Grinding Station to mill Dan for 3. Each player then exiles their hand and draws 7. John attempts to draw from an empty library and loses the game. Dan then plays an Ancient Tomb with land for turn. He activates Moonsilver Key, searching up a Basalt Monolith. He casts Basalt Monolith. It resolves and Dan casts Rings of Bright Hearth. Dan presents a loop of tapping Basalt for 3 and paying 3 to untap it. Rings triggers and he pays 2 to copy the untap ability, making 3 more mana. With this loop, he spends 5 mana to make 6. He makes infinite colorless mana. Dan casts Skittering Cicada off the top of his library with Mystic Forge. He now has flash on all of his spells. He casts the End Stone. It triggers twice to Cascade. At this point, Dan has 2 Cascade triggers and a Mystic Forge and Skittering Cicada. With his infinite mana, he can start casting all the cards in his deck. If he ever finds a land on top, he can just let the Cascade resolve. If he runs out of gas, he can let the End Stone resolve, so that all of his casts generate draws. Dan just shortcuts putting all the cards in his library on the stack, finding his Glaring Fleshraker. Now, every card he casts will create a spawn, which will pay each opponent for 1. Cammy has protection, so this loop kills Tyler. Dan then loops some of his cast triggers to destroy all of Cammy's permanents and put all of his stacked pieces out. Cammy can see the writing on the wall and scoops it up also. With that, Dan wins the game. So, what did we learn today? Random chance will always ruin your game. Your gambles will always whiff, and your opponent's cascades will always hit. Sometimes, that's just the way it is. If you have any tips for the video, leave them below. Subscribe if you feel like it. Until next time, keep making value plays. Oh, thank God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, thank God.
The guy is the luckiest man. I told you, I believe in miracles. He's top decked to land every turn.
All is dust.
Wow. Unreal.
That seems great. I think I'll cast that.
Yeah, not for nothing. John did say if it gets to his turn, he wins, because he just takes Necromancy and gets Abel Adrian. I do not have at the moment anything to stop that.
And it will stop John from winning with infinite guys unless they have haste. Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale.
Wow, that was crazy.
Scuff my win attempt just to throw yourself out the window.
I have a plan.
Yeah, I land.
Enchantment.
So draw 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Animate dead.
No
You
way.
little shithead. That's fucking crazy, dude.
That's
fucking crazy. This fucking
funny.
guy.
I can't do it under Tabernacle is the problem. I'm trying to animate Douthy under my board.
But like, why?
Because it can cast Thassa's Oracle and my library is almost empty. Because soon I can crack it and get out of here.
Shit.
John, you can't activate abilities of creatures.
I don't care. Oh, that Douthy. Yeah.
Wow. God.
Memory jar.
Wait a minute.
Wait, you can instantly kill John whenever you want.
That's funny.
Hey, everybody hang on.
Alright, everybody calm down.
You got
Come on
a
now.
gun to John's head.
I'm living under Memory Jar.
No, you're
What
right.
are you worried
Actually,
about?
you're right. Yeah, I don't need to worry. I'm sorry.
I have nothing. Dan's got everything, and he's like, you know, I'm just going to throw a hammer in the corner and see what it is. Hit that small boy over there.
Turn lights off. I'm throwing a hammer.
Yeah.
I hit that small boy over there.
I'm so fucking
John's
bad.
been pushing a win every turn since like turn
I could push
one.
it every single phase.
Then,
And I'll blow your board to bits if you touch me.
John, you have
He's
nothing.
just-
I will mill 3 cards into the Douthy zone. I swear to God, if you try and kill me, I will put you in
John,
hell.
You have nothing.
Nothing.
You have nothing.
I will mill you for 3.
Mill me?
Yeah,
Mill me for 3.
into Douthy.
AKA blow you to bits.
So funny.
I'll mill you for
Dan, I'm
3.
doing what I can.
I don't know if I want to play this deck again.